I'm ready to share some personal stuff that's exciting secrets.
On today's episode of the Peddler Perspective, we're welcoming Amber Skinner. Amber's an agent with Property Peddler. We're going to go through her path to get here, where she's at, where she's headed, and a little bit of the ins and outs of being a real estate agent. So, Amber, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in real estate.
Well, I moved down here in 2009 from Central Illinois. And about 2013, kids were in school and, went to go find a real job. Started a title company and started doing the final searches. And by 2015, I was doing the closings. Did closings up until 21. And then I just decided to go on it was 2020. And then I went to the lender side with Banterra and worked in the mortgage part as a closer there, doing the paperwork and the documents that they need for closing.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, the day I left title, Brad called. So asked if I'd be interested. So that was in September. In October, I seen your guys' post, and I was not happy with my decision of moving. So I didn't like to drive, so decided to maybe look into it and started, real estate in 21 with you guys. So
21. I was going to say
21.
that was
5 years this year.
Really, that's interesting. That's one of those
Made
things.
that 80%.
Yes, made that 80, and that was just talking about exactly 80%. Say 20% make it for the first. How many years? The first 2 years, 20% of agents.
Yeah, now it's 5 years because the first 2 years, I don't think they really count. Now they say 5 years. They started that when I hit my 2-year mark.
Okay, then
So,
now
it's 5 years.
Your goal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other part of that is that, coming into real estate when it was quite busy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people, it was a lot easier for them to make it than coming in when it's quite not as busy.
And when I came in too, it was perfect timing personally because my daughter just graduated high school. I took my exam in July and she moved to college the same week I started selling real estate. So I didn't have empty nest syndrome. My youngest went off to school and I jumped into this and it was my new baby. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a lot easier to build it. And so
Yeah.
it's one of those. It's a full focus.
I can't imagine the people who have young kids at home and starting out doing this. And I just can't imagine.
Yeah, I say it's one of those things. It's a tough situation. I mean, what's that? Why does everybody get into real estate so they can make their own schedule and be their own boss? Yeah.
Yeah, that's not it.
How's that work?
That's not
how's
true.
that worked out for you?
You have no personal time, no vacation time, no weekends, no evenings. It's always work 24/7.
Yes, so
That's
yes,
the hard part.
that it is. It's absolutely so. It's one of those things that can be rewarding, but it's also definitely it is definitely a stress on a personal life.
Yeah. It's demanding and 24/7 is what a lot of people expect of their agent. So
Yes.
setting those boundaries and so forth can be hard. And then when you do decide to do them, a lot of times people tend to get a little upset on that time sometimes.
Yes.
When you say, okay, this is the time that I'm going to take for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's explaining to your clients ahead of time sometimes or having some messages set. Hey, this is,
Yeah, but I don't really, since I can work my own schedule, my husband swings shifts every 2 weeks, all 3 shifts. So I kind of swing my shifts with his. So
yeah.
I might be more available during the days than, I might be at home during some days when he's at home on seconds. That way I still see him some. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it works out that way. So to set those guidelines, I don't always, and I have some clients that work third shift. And if I'm up and, they send a message and I'm up and I see it, I have no problem answering back.
Yeah.
Just don't expect me to.
Yeah.
But I might.
Yeah.
So I might surprise you in my answer. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So your experience with say doing the title work, how do you feel that's helped you in the real estate world and being able to sell real estate and transfer it?
Part of it, seeing all the deals come through, doing the closings and reading the way that I was interpreting the contracts and the way the agents intended. So I knew that there's always clarification on the way you want something worded in a contract, because otherwise it can go, not the way you intended. And then there's a disagreement. Knowing that deals fall apart last minute or at the table, seeing that happen. So I remember the first one I had fall apart. It was like my 3rd or 4th deal. And Brenda asked several times, are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah. Well, you're taking this well. Well, I knew this was a possibility. So I think it kind of helps there too. But knowing too, when you have one of those things that come up that it's a big they're married, I know you need to have the spouse's signature, even though they're not on the loan, or so there's not the extra paperwork, or knowing what I need for a mobile home title to have it surrendered properly, like the steps. I don't have to wait for title. I can be getting those along the way. Getting this stuff for, like, if this is in a trust or an LLC, I know those documents. And if there's an issue with the easement, I know what we need to do to get that work done to get it corrected. So I think some of that little things,
That helps in the title.
yeah, you didn't have to explain it. It's just kind of
So-
from personal experience.
From being title and dealing with agents and now being an agent, what are some misconceptions you might have had?
Oh my
in
gosh.
title?
I remember sending out, what are your commissions? And the agent's not answering me. And I thought, why can't you answer a simple question? It's not like no. I feel so bad for all those times that I thought those agents were just slacking off or ignoring my emails, because there's times you're on the road and you don't see them until you get home and it's way after. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
They're busier than I ever thought. I really did think that it was opening a door, going to closing. That was it. I really didn't know that there was so much in the actual part of the sale part of it. And there's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
So that's always good to know and become the expert as far as where that goes. So one of that building from just being an agent that thinks that they're open the door to being able to be a full service agent from start to finish, I think is one of those things that really makes agents differ and stand out.
Right.
So whenever you did the lending part of that for Banterra, did you do the underwriting full review docs? Or
I would
kind
make
of-
sure
okay.
that the loan officer and the processor had all the correct documents. And then I would go through and do all make sure the name was correct and make sure the spellings were correct. And then I would, if it was like a USDA loan, you initiated the correct docs for that loan type. And you made sure when the docs came back from closing, you made sure that all of the signatures were correct and all the things you needed for that closing to be completed and funded.
Yeah, because like I said, it sounded like you guys were actually doing some secondary market loans.
Yes,
as
most of
far
ours
as-
were secondary market.
Yeah, so that's a good exposure to have on that.
And then-
And because your clients on whenever you're on these secondary market loans, they are bombarded with the information that they need. And
Yes.
one of those, they finally get to the point where say, how much more do you want? I already gave you everything. No, just give me a few more docs.
Yes, there's a lot. And we also, after they closed, we also were the ones that sold it off to the secondary market. So knowing that process and why something might come up that it didn't come up with the title, and like a week or two later that they need something else signed or something was missed.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of know that too.
I think as far as the whole picture, I mean, I think your experience prior to being an agent was probably massive in you coming in and understanding and hit the ground running and so forth. Can you think of a time where that experience, or would you almost say every transaction that experience has followed you through?
I think that it's followed through. I feel like if I didn't have that experience, it would be a struggle knowing the contracts. But, we've dealt with both boards on the title company. So I knew both contracts. I knew what to look for, where they were at. And I didn't know like some of the details in there, but like the main things that are not standard in the contract, I'd seen plenty of them come through, seeing how they could be confusing and misinterpreted from one person to another, and seeing, exactly just different things that they've done on that side. So
Yeah.
I think otherwise it may have been a struggle filling the contracts out and just doing the initial part of it. So
Can you think of a transaction where experience really made the difference in the transaction?
several of them, just having the mobile home title, having the documents and having everything ready, because those are not fun.
Oh, that gives me a big old smile. Mobile homes are interesting. Those become major pains in the butt. So.
Yeah. And knowing like the correct documents that needed and what's going to be required when you go in to either sell it, or if you have a buyer, knowing that you're going to need that engineer report and making sure they have that mobile home title and title numbers and knowing where they're located at. Just knowing how long that process can be if you don't have the documentation. I think that was the biggest thing, because that title was one of the things I hated most, was having to surrender those titles. So, but it helped me know which documents I needed and why you needed them, and so it did help there.
Yeah. So when you think of a consumer who is going out to look at an agent, what do you think is important for them if they experience counts?
Trusting them, communication, their knowledge on what they're looking at. I mean, are they looking at the house with open eyes, or are they just, do they know the house, what they're looking for, at the crack in the mortar on the brick, or, in the basement, and you're looking for signs of leakage, or, maybe even something else, because I think it's important to put that in a contract when you initially start. So, and that way you also have open eyes whenever you're writing the contract and the inspection comes in, you're not scared by the inspection because the agent didn't point it out and you didn't notice it during the time.
If you were hiring an agent today, do you have questions you would ask them? If you were on the other foot and you were hiring somebody to help represent you,
What questions can you tell the consumers out there that they need to be
I
asking?
would 100% ask if they were the listing agent, I would 100% ask for a different agent. I would not go with the dual agent just because I want somebody to represent me and my interest in the home. I mean, dual agency is fine, but it's not always fun either. If you don't trust your agent, dual agency is not the way to go. I would definitely make sure that they knew the area that I was looking in and knew, they just had open communication, talking me through the steps of where we're going to go, what needs to be done, time frame. Oh.
What, for curiosity, I mean, as far as, what we, as realtors, we basically say that we want all of our clients pre-approved. Educating, I mean, the first time buyer out there on how much and why that makes such a difference. I mean, they get tired, I'm sure they get tired of hearing it, or they hear it the first time. It's like, well, I just want to look at a house. Okay. Let's go into some ins and outs of that.
It's
Value of the pre-approval process.
It's not always about the dollar amount that you're approved for. A lot of times it's the type of financing you're approved for, because not every home is going to meet those USDA, FHA, or VA standards, or a conventional home doesn't have as many requirements. So they don't have the requirements that some of the other ones do. So if you are an FHA or USDA, you got to make sure the home qualifies for that. And then if it's a home that somebody lives in, you don't want to ask them to leave to go show a house that somebody who's not, they get their hopes up because somebody's looking at the house, or,
That's
or
a very good point. What
inconvenient.
buyers don't understand is that, okay, yes, our sellers are getting their hopes up. When
Yeah.
somebody comes to look at it, they expect them to be an actual viable buyer, not somebody that's kicking tires.
Yes.
Type situation.
And if they don't have that pre-approval and you ask them to leave their house, you don't know if they have dogs and kids that they were having to get out, or if they scramble to come home from work, or work 2 hours early to clean a house or pick up a house just before the showing. That pre-approval is important because, that way you know that the house qualifies, the money is right where you're at.
Yeah.
That's important.
The other thing I would try to point out there is something that's to do with not only just the maximum amount that you can borrow, but where's your comfort level?
Mhm.
I mean, that is one of those things to understand what the payments are going to be,
Yes.
what the insurance and taxes are going to be. But you look at that and say, okay, yeah, just because I can borrow $200, I may not be comfortable with spending the payment that it takes for that property per month. People might say, I don't want to be house poor, or things of that. So that way they can be educated and realistic.
And a lot of times people think, well, I'm paying, $1,000 a month for rent. So on the bottom of this website, it shows I can get this is what my payments will be on this house, and it's less than what my rent is. So, I can buy this, and it doesn't have anything to do with that. The computer doesn't know what the payments are going to be. They just are giving an estimate. There's a lot of different factors in payments. From what my payments are on for one house, somebody else's payments could be different based off of credit score, lenders, and different types of loan programs too, and down payment. So
whenever you're walking through the PMI and then or the USDA, the funding fees that are on with those. So.
And the IDA programs, a lot of times people don't realize that's a second mortgage attaching to the property. And when they go to pay off, you're losing, you got to pay off 2 mortgages, because the IDA program will eventually grandfather out, or you'll pay it off over a time period. But if you sell before that time period, you got to pay a part of it back. So you got 2 mortgages to pay off now.
And when a person's buying, their agent's important partner, but so is their lender.
Yes.
That is a very key part of moving forward, is having a lender that is a good partner for them.
Yes. A lot of times those online lenders are not always the best. You don't always get the same person you're talking to, or they don't know the area, they don't know the taxes because Illinois pays in the rears, whereas some other states don't. So when they start figuring taxes, they're a little bit confused. And sometimes they have a pre-qualification and not a pre-approval. They haven't actually, the difference being that they haven't actually done the full pre-approval of, running your credit score. They went by the information you gave, and now that pre-qualification doesn't match with what you have because you had another payment that you missed, or, something else that now you don't qualify for, and they don't catch it sometimes until, towards the end of the deal, and you've already spent money on inspections, you've lost your earnest money, and now the deal's falling apart, and you've got your hopes up, and so did the sellers, and now nobody's happy. So,
And then the lender fees is something that the buyers need to be looking for. It's not just the interest rate, but as far as the final fees to fund. The other one that runs us into when we have that conversation about the out-of-town lenders is the appraisers. So an out-of-town lender will get an appraiser off of a board or a referral network that we just had one the other day that the appraisers out of St. Louis for Ellis Grove, because the lenders didn't have their local people that knew the area or even how to compare. So those are things that whenever you get into those local, the out-of-town lenders versus local, understanding that there's a lot to look at this whole buying process.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, even in the lender fees, the origination fee for one bank could be significantly higher from one to somebody else that's local. And a lot of times those local banks still sell to that same secondary market. They're still selling to Penny Mac or anybody else, just like the ones online are. So you're competing there, and you just have a lot less fees and origination and other lender fees that they charge.
So you got to watch that the interest rate, because they charge you fees to buy it down.
Yes, they do.
Yep.
I've had several about fall through, and just knowing the right lender.
Yes.
Or having a trusted lender that you have and building those relationships up have been able to save the deal, even as a listing agent, and, just, suggesting it, and the other agent, going with the suggestion and using them and saving a deal. It's worked both ways as a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, and just keeping those relationships with the lenders that you trust and you work with and the ones you refer out.
Yeah, because you've had to bring them in, even though the first lender couldn't do it.
Yeah. And I've even brought it in after the closing date just to try to save a deal.
Yeah.
And it can be done. Sometimes it's just a little bit longer for closing and a little bit extra paperwork, but it can be done. But it's easier if you just go with the right lender to begin with.
Yeah, relationships matter, and dealing with the other agent, relationships matter with them.
Yes.
Because you guys are working together to somewhat do the same deal. If people want a home, people want to sell a home. You're trying to get to the end point. You want that representation to still be there, but you getting along to some degree to get it done is important to some degree.
Oh, it's a common goal.
Yeah.
I'd say everybody, the buyer, the seller, and both agents involved, the common goal is a closing date and a happy seller and a happy buyer. So that's really the ultimate goal of, I think, of being a real estate agent, is to provide happy clients as buyers or sellers.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think that's important.
And sometimes it's hard.
It is. They've got
It's not always easy.
That's one of those, you can go back to that again, they say, for as agents are, is that, I became an agent so I can make my own schedule and work my own hours and that's
it's your deal. You're juggling a lot of different personalities, a lot of different knowledge, way people do things differently.
And the expectations they set with their clients,
Yes.
what they think they can get through in an inspection that.
Yeah, it's
Is
a lot
it?
of different.
Yeah.
It's a lot of different expectations. So it's juggling a lot and trying to keep the drama down to the minimum, of the aggravations down to a minimum. It can be hard. It's a hard situation there. So, but yeah, I think the end goal is we absorb a lot because we don't want to put it on our clients,
Yes.
and so we end up taking a lot of that stress, I think, on sometimes. Especially as women, as usually we tend to do that. We don't let it roll off as well sometimes. So, but anyway, is there anything you would tell a young agent starting today? What would be the big thing you would tell a young agent starting today?
Don't get discouraged, and be prepared for a lot of nickel and diming, MLS fees, lead fees, everything. I mean, like you spend a lot of money, and be prepared to give up weekends, holidays, evenings, time off.
There's a little roller coaster.
There is a lot of roller coasters. If you
Okay.
can't, yeah, be ready for the highs and the lows, and be able to shake it off. And it's not always that easy, but
So it's easier said than done.
yes,
Is that what you-
sometimes I need to listen to this and just take my own advice. But yeah,
Sometimes, you do.
Sometimes,
We
yeah.
take our own advice whenever we do that. But yes, that's
It's a job. And you do end up really, I appreciate that I have a job that I'm able to work in and I do I do get immersed in it. I do. But it's also, you got to watch getting over immersed and still have a personal life and making sure the other big parts of your life, your family and friends and stuff don't suffer because and Brad says there never is a perfect balance.
and I would say that was my mistake in the first 2 to 3 years. Is I didn't have that balance. It was, phone rang, I gotta go, and you'd have plans to go somewhere, and we can't go. I made this appointment. They want to go now. I'm going now. Instead of, I didn't want to make them now by changing the time, or and then you learn I have appointments set during that time, and your appointment is yourself, spending time doing what you need to do. So
And it is important to take that time. And what I found is that a lot of my great customers, they would be excited when I go to do something for myself. Oh, you're taking a trip? That's great. A lot of them do understand you got to have a life outside of, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. You have to get yourself fulfilled also to basically pour back into others. So, and it's very important. We forget that. We do tend to forget that. So, yep. But anyway, I guess next time.
Yeah, so I'd say next time we'll get together, we'll get into your personal and some other advice that we can share with the actual more into the clients. And then we look forward to having you back in the future.
that sounds good. Yeah, I'm ready to share some personal stuff that's exciting secrets.
There you go. Thank you for joining us today on the Peddler Perspective. If today's episode sparked a thought, a smile, or a new idea, share it with someone who'd enjoy the ride. Until next time, we'll be here, working the land, serving our clients, and bringing you more stories worth hearing.